Well, it shook it up. Slavery requires the support of government. It requires enforcement. It's something that when a disruption occurs in a society, it's very difficult to have a slave system such as they had in America, in Virginia, Maryland, and South Carolina at the time of the American Revolution. And so when there's any sort of civil disorder and discord, that shakes the system. And it also disrupted it even more profoundly when you had armies moving through, when you had, as in Virginia, when the royal governor pulled out of the capital of the colony, out of Williamsburg. And so suddenly you have this situation where there's sort of no government or an interlude in it. And so it shook the institution up, and it allowed slaves fled from masters in many cases. It changed it in a good many ways. Well, it was a difficult decision for them. They had their masters who weren't promising them very much freedom. And the British on the British Isles, and slaves were aware of this because remember, there's a network of communication that carries over from off of shipboards, people carrying back and forth. In 1773, the British had outlawed slavery in the British Isles, although they still had a very harsh form of slavery in the West Indies and Jamaica and their other sugar islands. So it was a difficult kind of decision to make, whether you would go with this. And a number did go. They went with Dunmore and joined his cause. Others chose not to because they had ties. Remember that slavery is different here in America because the slaves have communities, they have families, they have many kin. They're born here too. So for many of these people, it would mean perhaps leaving all that you knew and all that you loved, and so they might choose to stay. So it was a difficult decision for them, but some did join Lord Dunmore and fought for him in a little engagement that he had down in Eastern Virginia. Laurens originally wanted to use 5,000 slaves. Laurens, very prominent, son of a very prominent planter in South Carolina, one of the wealthiest and richest in South Carolina, a rice planter. He's a young man, very well educated, absorbed the ideas of the Enlightenment, a very brave and courageous officer. He fought at Brandywine and Monmouth and the actions of the Revolution. It was said of him that one of the officers said that if he's not shot dead, it's not because he didn't try. He was doing everything, that he was very bold. And so he drew up a proposal to arm and use 5,000 slaves with the promise of freedom. And he was supported by Alexander Hamilton and others in the Continental Army. They thought this was a good idea. He thought that it was a way for South Carolina in particular to defend itself against the British, that without that they might have real problems in terms of raising the necessary manpower. But the problem was that immediately George Washington saw was that it would frighten the big slaveholders. They would think that it would lead on to slave revolts, that it would cause them to perhaps pull back from support of the Patriot cause. And so Washington urged caution, and Laurens went back to South Carolina. He scaled the proposal back to 3,000, but he was fought by the governor of South Carolina and others in the legislature for those reasons, that it might cause slave revolt, that it would upset the slave system, and so ultimately it did not come to pass. It is one of the the great might-have-beens of the American Revolution, because had those numbers fallen, had a process happen like that and they had been given freedom, very possibly that could have begun the unraveling of slavery.